Hi, welcome to my photographic video diaries. I'm Andrew Aveley, professional photographer and specialist wildlife and nature photographic guide based in South Africa. The 6D Mark II was aimed at enthusiasts and serious amateurs, and it's been 5 years since the Mark I was released, so yeah, let's have a look at what my thoughts are and some information. First, we're going to look at the construction and the build. First thing to look at is there's a new magnesium alloy construction along with the plastic as normal on a camera body, but the Canon 6D Mark I was completely plastic. There's a great new 3-inch articulated screen, makes it very useful for difficult angles to hold the camera and try and get your head to the viewfinder. For me, it works great when shooting at very low angle out of a vehicle. I can actually see the composition before just tripping the shutter. All other basic ergonomics are the same for both models. You've got the LCD on the top, you've got the mode selector, you've got the hot shoe, you've got the mic and the HDMI, etc. all connected on the side. Second of all, we're going to make a comparison between the Mark I and the Mark II. So let's have a look at the comparison between the 6D Mark II and the Mark I version. The effective megapixels are 26.2 versus 20.2. Our image processor is a Digic 7 versus the older Digic 5 Plus. The highest ISO without using the expansion is 40,000 versus 32,000 ISO. Autofocus points in the viewfinder, really great to have 45 with the Mark II versus the 11 on the Mark I. Autofocus on the LCD, it's a dual pixel focus system versus the contrast detection. Frames per second, 6.5 versus 4.5, just gives you that little edge when doing some action photography. Shots per battery, and of course this is an estimate in normal operating conditions, not in the desert and not in the freezing Arctic environments. Not much of a difference, but it will just give you a little edge. 1200 versus 1050 is the estimate. Movie recording, full 60p HD versus the 30p HD. 5-axis movie image stabilizer we have versus no in the previous model. Varied angle LCD of course is new, not being available in the original model. Touchscreen, yes, obviously no in the Mark I. Intervalometer, great feature to have for those that want to shoot varying time lapses, etc. Time-lapse mode's also got a full 4K HD setting, which the Mark I obviously didn't have. GPS is in both models. Connectivity, pretty big step up with Wi-Fi, NFC, near field communication and BT, which is Bluetooth, versus just the Wi-Fi in the Mark I version. Microphone, new stereo versus the original mono. Thirdly, we're going to make some interesting observations and my personal favorites. So some of my personal highlights of this DSLR. First would be the dual pixel autofocus system for both video and stills. The quiet shutter mode, especially when I'm out in the field, especially with wildlife, and I have to be quiet not to disturb the animal, the quiet shutter mode comes in quite helpful. Touchscreen focus and shutter for those difficult angles always works a treat when you don't have to be a contortionist to see through the viewfinder, hold it and trip the shutter. In-camera crop modes for viewfinder files, so yeah, you have the 1:1 ratio, the 4:3 and the 16:9. It helps you get your composition right in camera, which for me is always a good thing. Time-lapse, the full 4K for those who need it for commercial and stock time-lapse work, a great addition. The ISO performance is on a par with my 7D Mark II, maybe even a stop better. That's personal experience, but very impressive at the higher ISO range. The new LP E6N is interchangeable with my 5D Mark III, the 6D Mark I, 7D Mark II, the 5DSR, etc. So it's a great to have that you can use extra batteries and don't have to carry around a dozen chargers. Low light focusing is great and as good as the 6D Mark I, which was a very big standout feature of the 6D range. 4. Let's look at some real world images. So let's have a look at some images I've captured. This is a portrait. Basically these are in-camera JPEGs, great skin tones. This is using a 50mm at f2. ISO and focusing. This image was shot at ISO 6400, near dark. You can have a look that it's picked up the subject, beautiful depth of field, and really enabled me to get some good shots. In the field, the exposure, this was pretty cool. A bit of backlighting and animals in the shadow. It gave me a good depth, and I'm sure with some fancy footwork in Photoshop or Lightroom I can recover some more of the highlights, but as is, a great image. The exposure, sun is already set. We have illumination from a safari vehicle and the lioness walking away, shot with a 50mm. Really good balanced exposure with the extreme lighting conditions. The monochrome, the in-camera, leaves you a great sense of sort of black and white. Not too much work having to be done with these JPEGs, so it's a good start. Like in all Canon cameras, the monochrome, as it gets better with the menu systems and the newer cameras, I see fine-tuning, and it's a really worthwhile exercise to use the in-camera picture styles. 5, we're going to look at one camera, one shoot. So, this is a project I did at a lodge I was working at. They gave me a list of things to do, so I decided to use various lenses and the 6D2. So we start here with a group portrait, really good rendition of color. Had to shoot the boma at night. This was shot with a 40mm f2.8. You can see my 50 on the table there, just to show the lights at the boma. Really good quality image. Did a fruit board shoot and cheeses. This was using the angled viewfinder and not having to bend down to shoot at a different level. Shallow depth of field again in the kitchen, fluorescent lights. This was shot with a 50mm f1.4, so yeah, really good balancing of light. Again, depth of field in the kitchen, very nice range of colors and the exposure throughout. This is a pile of the famous rhino biscuits that you'll have at one of the lodges in Madikwe. Yeah, very good depth of field, nice light again, done in the kitchen with no flash. Afternoon tea, shallow depth of field, not everybody's cup of tea, pardon the pun, but something the lodge wanted to show through the work. Game drive snacks, this is not just setup, this is what we have every day when we go out in the field. Even the teapot for the mornings, and then the famous South African Amarula liqueur, which we use as adult milk, we like to call it, in our coffee or tea. Interiors I did of the lodge as well. Really good balanced light and exposure here. No flashes, no HDR, very subtle editing done, so great result with this little camera. Outdoor shot again, very bright light, shot at f22 as you can see with the starburst. I'm not too good at doing these. I would have had a filter, it would have been better to balance out the exposure, but nonetheless this suited the owner's needs. Trying to be creative around the boma, setting up the lanterns at night. Like or subscribe to keep up to date with exciting content for 2018. Click down below, you can sign up for my newsletter. Thanks for viewing, guys.